Okay, you want to take better photos in low light, especially inside, like a restaurant for instance. Well, I'm about to share with you how I get great photos like these in a low light setting. Typically, the camera will do one of two things. It'll give you a flash photo where the subject is too bright and the background is too dark, or it'll take a great exposure, however you can't use it because the whole thing's blurry. So the real secret is to combine the two things that your camera's already trying to do. One, you want to use the flash, but not at full power and not straight on. You want to, if you can, point it to the ceiling and turn the power down. The other thing you want to do is to drag the shutter, to make the shutter speed longer than a normal photo so that you end up with a little bit of blur. However, the flash, when it hits your subject, is actually going to freeze the subject action and make them look full of color, and therefore you don't really get any blur. However, what it's doing is absorbing the ambient light from behind and allowing that flash from in front to balance out the photo. I always strongly suggest using a tripod if you have the ability to. Your settings on the camera may have to be adjusted and changed depending on the exact circumstances. So if you go from one side of the room to the next, or from one room to another, or as the day progressively gets darker, your settings will have to change. Okay, so let's talk about camera settings. I'll show you if I hit the info button and I keep pressing that, the information displayed on the back of the screen is going to cycle until I get here, and then I can see my camera settings, my shooting settings. So if I'm shooting interior of a home, for instance, what I would do is go to the ISO, choose 100, you can choose 200 if you like, and then the aperture, typically because you're on a tripod in this situation, you don't need to worry about the shutter speed. So what I'm going to do is set the aperture to something like f11 or f16, and now we're going to look at the shutter speed. The shutter speed, you want to bring this dial into the center here, and so the shutter speed in this case is 1/8 of a second, and we're just going to take a shot, and it looks a little dark, so I can even bring it up, and there's my shot. The flash is set to manual. Notice it's pointed up to the ceiling. This will allow the light to be diffused and fall down through the whole room as very diffused soft light, and really help to boost the correct colors inside of the interior. Now this is going to be set to around 16th. You can do 1/8 or 1/32. I found that that's usually a good starting point. Typically, if you're trying to get great interior photos, you want to take the flash off of camera, maybe even have multiple flashes, and this way you can control the light. Now, inside of a restaurant, say for instance, you're going to have different subject matter. You're going to have people in the foreground most likely, and you're going to have a background that's got some warm, moody kind of light, and you don't want to kill that with too much flash. So, but usually in a restaurant situation, the ceilings are higher and they're not white like it is in a home. So typically I would probably go with 1/8 on the flash. So we'll adjust this to 1/8 or even 1/4 power, maybe even 1/2 power. Still pointing up toward the ceiling, maybe just a little bit forward toward the subject, a tiny bit. And the camera settings, in this case you want to let a lot of light through that lens. So in this case, with this lens I have, I can go to 2.8. You may want to go to f4, whatever is going to fit your needs. F5.6 is the suggested typical aperture for portraits. However, in a low light situation, you probably want to get a little bit more light coming through. And then your shutter speed will probably, hopefully, be above 1/60th. You may have to kind of drag it a little longer than that, so 140, 130. This will help to soak up that ambient light in the back, and yes, it could cause a little bit of blurring, but when that flash fires, your subject matter is going to be frozen and full of color and actually look good. It'll help to balance the background and the foreground, and you should get a good shot with those settings. Thank you very much for watching. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. This will help others to find it as well. And if you want to see more videos that I make, please click on the channel description. And if you have any comments or questions, leave those below. Happy shooting!